The Galactic Dominion had conquered 1,000 worlds. It was an empire built on war, crushing every species that dared stand in its way. Their fleets were unmatched, their technology centuries ahead of lesser civilizations. They were unstoppable. And now they had set their sights on Earth. Admiral Veckrus stood on the bridge of the Doombringer, the largest and most powerful warship in the Dominion's history. His yellow eyes glowed under the dim lights of the command deck as he observed the blue planet below. "Pathetic," he muttered. "A world that still relies on crude combustion engines and primitive satellites. This will be over before it even begins." The Dominion had fought countless wars, and every battle followed the same pattern. Their fleets would arrive, unleash orbital bombardment, and wipe out the enemy's defenses within hours. Ground forces would descend, eliminating any remaining resistance. Within a day, the planet would belong to the Dominion. This time would be no different. "Status report," Veckrus ordered. "Fleet is in position," his tactical officer replied. "Orbital bombardment ready on your command. No signs of planetary defenses strong enough to resist us." Veckrus allowed himself a smirk. The reports on humanity were laughable. Their ships were slow, their weapons outdated, and their armies weak. There was no need for strategy, no need for careful planning. The Dominion would simply crush them. He leaned forward in his command chair. "Begin the attack." From orbit, the Dominion fleet unleashed its firepower. Columns of plasma rained down upon Earth's surface. Cities burned, explosions rippled across the land, and thick clouds of smoke rose into the sky. Satellites and space stations were obliterated in seconds. Veckrus watched with satisfaction. It was already over. But then, something strange happened. "Admiral," the sensor officer said, hesitation in his voice. "The damage, it's not as severe as expected." Veckrus frowned. "Explain." The officer's hands moved rapidly over the console. "Some of our strikes are missing. Others are hitting but causing minimal destruction. The humans, they're countering us." That was impossible. No species had ever resisted Dominion bombardment before. Veckrus turned toward the display. The images of devastation were not as widespread as they should have been. Some cities seemed untouched, and others showed damage that was already being repaired. "Sir," another officer shouted, "they have planetary shields, hidden defense systems." Veckrus's smirk vanished. No one had mentioned that in the reports. Before he could respond, another alert blared through the ship. "Incoming projectiles." The bridge trembled as something struck the Doombringer. Not a plasma blast, not a missile. Something fast, something solid. "Damage report," Veckrus barked. The screen flickered, revealing the impossible. A Dominion battleship had just been destroyed. Not by energy weapons, not by an enemy warship, but by a massive high-velocity metal slug. "A railgun," one of the officers whispered in disbelief. "But that kind of weaponry is inefficient at planetary scale. It shouldn't be able to." A second impact. A third. More ships detonated into fireballs. Humanity wasn't defenseless. Veckrus clenched his fists. "Deploy the ground forces. I want this world under control now." Dropships launched from the Dominion fleet, descending through Earth's atmosphere. They carried elite Dominion soldiers, the best warriors the galaxy had ever seen. They expected an easy slaughter. Instead, they found hell. The moment the first dropships landed, hidden anti-aircraft guns opened fire, tearing through their ranks. Human fighter jets, far more agile than Dominion models, zipped through the air, ripping apart landing squads before they could organize. The ground forces that did survive entry never saw the enemy coming. In the ruins of a shattered city, a squad of Dominion warriors advanced cautiously. Their armor was nearly indestructible. Their plasma rifles could vaporize most biological creatures with a single shot. They should have been unstoppable. Then the first human sniper round struck. A single bullet, a simple, ancient piece of technology, but aimed with deadly precision. It punched through the weak point in the Dominion warrior's armor, sending him crashing to the ground, dead before he could react. Then the second shot. The third. The remaining soldiers panicked. Their technology was failing them. Their armor, designed for direct plasma combat, had no answer to human ballistics. And then the ambush began. Human soldiers moved like shadows, using cover, launching attacks from hidden positions. They weren't just fighting back, they were hunting. Vecrus watched the disaster unfold from orbit, his confidence crumbling. The humans knew they were coming. They had been preparing for this fight, and the Dominion had underestimated them. For the first time in his life, Admiral Vecrus felt something unfamiliar. The Dominion had expected swift victory. Instead, their landing forces were being torn apart. Reports flooded the Doombringer's command deck, each one more horrifying than the last. The humans weren't fighting like the other species the Dominion had crushed before. They were organized, disciplined, and worst of all, they were prepared. Admiral Vecrus paced the bridge, his claws clicking against the cold metal floor. His officers scrambled to make sense of the chaos unfolding below. How are they countering us so efficiently? He demanded. A tactical officer hesitated before responding. It appears they have been studying our warfare tactics for some time, Admiral. Their defenses are not random. They knew our landing zones, they anticipated our orbital strikes, and they have hidden weapon systems designed specifically to neutralize our forces. Vecrus clenched his jaw. That was impossible. The Dominion had been watching Earth for years. Humanity was supposed to be fractured, still locked in primitive internal conflicts. How had they hidden their true strength? A new alert blared through the ship. Admiral, the comms officer shouted. Multiple Dominion ships are losing contact. They are being destroyed. Vecrus turned to the main display, his eyes widening in shock. A massive human warship had just decloaked. That shouldn't have been possible. Cloaking technology was something only the Dominion had mastered. Yet there it was, a sleek, black warship of unknown design, ripping apart an entire Dominion battleship in seconds. That's not possible, a bridge officer whispered. It didn't stop there. More human warships emerged, their designs unlike anything ever recorded. Some were smaller, moving with unnatural speed, dodging Dominion fire with impossible precision. Others were massive, bristling with railguns and missile batteries that pounded Dominion shields like hammers striking glass. One by one, the unstoppable Dominion fleet was being reduced to burning wreckage. Pull back. Vecrus barked. Regroup our forces. But it was already too late. The humans had baited them into attacking, luring the Dominion into their trap. And now the slaughter had begun. You said. Panic spread across the Doombringer's bridge as more Dominion ships vanished from the fleet display. Entire squadrons were being annihilated before they could even mount a counterattack. The humans weren't just defending Earth anymore. They were hunting the invaders with terrifying efficiency. Admiral Vecrus gritted his teeth, his claws digging into the armrests of his command chair. How did they hide this fleet from us? He growled. We scanned every inch of their system. The intelligence officer's voice wavered. Sir, we assumed their technology was too primitive to pose a threat. We didn't account for the possibility that they had developed new strategies specifically against us. Vecrus slammed a fist against his chair. You mean we were blind? A new warning flashed on the tactical display. Human forces were advancing. Not just in space, on the ground as well. The Dominion army had landed expecting a quick conquest. Instead, they were bogged down in brutal street battles, their advanced armor and energy weapons proving ineffective against human ambush tactics. Soldiers were vanishing in urban warfare. Snipers were eliminating officers with surgical precision, and entire battalions were being led into deadly kill zones. But the real horror came from the skies. From high above Earth's surface, massive railgun platforms, ones the Dominion had failed to detect, began launching kinetic strikes. Simple metal slugs, accelerated to hypersonic speeds, tore through Dominion warships like paper. No energy shields could stop them. One of the officers gasped as the screen flickered. The Doomclaw has been destroyed. Vecris's breath caught in his throat. The Doomclaw was a Dominion dreadnought, second only to the Doombringer in sheer power. It should have been invincible. Yet now, it was nothing but debris. "Admiral," the comms officer said, his voice barely a whisper, "we're losing this battle." Vecris refused to believe it. The Dominion had never lost, not in 1,000 years. And yet here, against humanity, the impossible was happening. "You said," Admiral Vecris watched in cold disbelief as the once mighty Dominion fleet was being shattered before his eyes. The humans fought with brutal precision, exploiting every weakness in the Dominion strategy. They had studied them. Every tactic, every formation, every weapon system. The humans had prepared for this invasion far better than the Dominion had prepared to launch it. The Doombringer shook violently as a kinetic round slammed into its hull. Even with reinforced plating, the impact sent officers sprawling. A damage report scrolled across Vecris's display. Several decks had been breached. "Shields are failing," an officer cried. "How are they doing this?" Vecris demanded, his voice edged with desperation. The tactical officer hesitated before responding. "Sir, their railgun platforms are firing from the moon. Their gravitational slingshot technology. It's unlike anything we've encountered." Vecris's eyes narrowed. The humans had weaponized their own moon. The implications were staggering. They weren't just defending Earth. They had turned the entire solar system into a battlefield. But the nightmare wasn't over. On the planet's surface, the Dominion's ground forces were being slaughtered. Humans fought like predators. They refused open engagements, striking in small, coordinated units before vanishing. Dominion walkers were destroyed with EMP traps, infantry battalions were wiped out by drone strikes, and command outposts were hacked and overrun. A new message flashed on Vecris's screen. Distress signals. Dozens of them. "Admiral," the comms officer said, his voice tight with fear. "Our ground forces they're being wiped out. Entire legions are going dark. They're not even retreating. They're just gone." Vecris's claws dug into his armrests. This wasn't a war anymore. This was an extermination. The humans had allowed the Dominion to attack, had let them believe in their invincibility. And now, they were dismantling them piece by piece. A realization settled into Vecris's chest like a stone. They had made a mistake that would cost them everything. "You said," the Dominion had never experienced true fear until now. On the bridge of the Doombringer, Admiral Vecris struggled to comprehend the unfolding disaster. Entire battalions had vanished, and now even the Dominion's retreating forces were being hunted down. The humans weren't just winning. They were making the statement. "Admiral," a panicked officer shouted, "multiple Dominion ships are attempting to withdraw, but the humans are jamming our FTL drives." Vecris's stomach twisted. That should have been impossible. The Dominion's technology was light years ahead of anything the humans possessed, and yet every hyperspace window collapsed before it could fully form. "Sir, we are being boxed in," the tactical officer cried. "They're forcing us into their kill zone." Vecris clenched his jaw. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had anticipated the Dominion's retreat routes and set up a brutal ambush. On the main display, Dominion warships desperately tried to escape, only to be cut down by Earth's hidden fleet. It wasn't just a counterattack. It was a massacre. And then came the final horror. A massive warship emerged from the darkness of space, larger than anything the Dominion had ever seen. It was not listed in any intelligence reports. A ghost, a myth turned real. And it was aimed directly at the Doombringer. The ship's weapons powered up, unleashing a devastating barrage. Blue-white beams of concentrated energy speared through Dominion cruisers, slicing through their hulls like they were made of paper. Smaller human vessels swarmed the remaining fleet, tearing apart their formations with inhuman precision. The Doombringer rocked as impact after impact battered its shields. Vecrus gripped his chair, his mind racing. This wasn't just a defeat. This was a reckoning. The humans had played them perfectly, let them invade, let them feel powerful, only to crush them when they thought they had already won. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vecrus felt fear, and he knew with absolute certainty the Dominion would not survive this war. You said the Doombringer was dying. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the once mighty flagship of the Dominion's fleet was now little more than a drifting wreck. Admiral Vecrus clutched the edge of his command console, his mind racing. He had commanded countless invasions, conquered dozens of worlds. But nothing had prepared him for this. Earth had been a trap from the beginning. The humans had allowed the Dominion to attack. They had lured them in with the illusion of weakness, let them land their forces, let them deploy their fleet in full strength. And then, piece by piece, they had torn them apart. On the shattered bridge, officers scrambled to regain control. "Admiral," one of them shouted, "weapons are offline. Our reactors are failing. We have no way to fight back." A transmission came through the main screen. A human. A woman clad in a sleek military uniform, her expression cold, unyielding. Her eyes burned with something Vecrus had never seen in any species before. Rage. "You came to our world," she said, her voice calm yet dripping with controlled fury. "You thought we would surrender, that we would bow to your empire." She leaned forward. "You were wrong." The screen went dark, and then the final blow came. From Earth's orbit, a railgun round the size of a battleship fired at the Doombringer. It pierced straight through the ship's core, igniting the fuel reserves and causing a chain reaction of explosions. Vecrus had one last thought as fire engulfed him. The Dominion had believed themselves unstoppable, but they had never faced humanity before. You said, the explosion that tore through the Doombringer was only the beginning. It was as though a dark curtain had been lifted, revealing the full scope of humanity's wrath. As the mighty Dominion flagship disintegrated in the cold vacuum of space, a ripple of devastation spread through the remaining fleet. Dominion warships that had once seemed invincible, massive floating citadels of destruction, were now reduced to nothing more than scattered debris, picked apart by humanity's relentless forces. The humans, for the first time in the war, were not just defending, they were hunting. The remains of the Dominion armada were picked off one by Earth's hidden warships, their sleek designs now fully revealed. The Dominion, once the dominant force in the galaxy, had underestimated their enemy. They had believed that Earth's people were weak, disorganized, primitive. They thought they could crush the planet without effort. But instead, they had triggered their own annihilation. Admiral Vecrus, in his final moments, had looked into the eyes of their commander and seen the unshakable resolve of a species that had endured countless wars, that had been through hardship, that had never known the meaning of surrender. And now, humanity stood triumphant. On Earth, the survivors of the Dominion invasion were forced to accept their defeat, scattered across the planet's surface. The human forces had already begun to round up the remaining Dominion soldiers, ensuring that no one would escape the retribution they so richly deserved. The world was at peace, but it was a peace born from hard-fought victory, and the understanding that humanity had come together as one, not to conquer the stars, but to protect their home. The message was clear. The galaxy would never again see Earth as a mere target. It had been tested, and it had shown the universe just how far humanity would go to defend its future. The Dominion fleet, the greatest the galaxy had ever seen, had been obliterated, not by superior technology, not by overwhelming numbers, but by human will, human ingenuity, and human strength. And as Earth celebrated its victory, the stars above seemed to whisper of the power of a species that had never been truly understood until now.